Thanks for joining us at Right On Replicas, where we're proud to bring you the best scale model kit reviews on the planet.
This review covers the Tony Stewart Chevrolet Monte Carlo number 20 NASCAR. It's a 125 scale kit from AMT, number 38070. By the way, Newt, the program director, couldn't get through today. Get this, technical difficulties. But it wasn't his fault. The cable company isn't providing service to his place right now. So with this stay-at-home stuff, we're kind of stuck. So I'm going to wing it today and take my lumps later. Now, Tony Stewart has had a sensational career as a champion NASCAR driver. And this kit, released in 2004, was the first to commemorate his two first-place wins for the 2003 season. Now, the kit is pretty simple, except for perhaps some of the decal placement and some of the framework there. But other than that, it's pretty easy build. Now, even so, it's nice. It's a nice break for the experienced modeler, and it looks absolutely stunning. One thing about these NASCARs is they're beautiful when they're in their paint and decals. So it's been around a while, and there are a number of re-releases of the kit. This one, of course, out of production, but still available. There's 92 pieces molded in white with chrome pieces and soft Goodyear Eagle branded tires. And when you're finished, it's about 8 inches long, 3.5 inches wide, and 2.5 inches high. Here are the contents of the kit. As you can see, it's pretty cleanly made, and there's also, of course, some clear window pieces that'll need to be highlighted for the reinforcement bars. These are the decals for the kit. They're very colorful, and they go along with the great paint scheme. And, of course, once again, for the 2003 model year. And I would use some setting solution on some of the larger decals there to make sure they set onto the contours well. And remember to follow the safety and use guidelines for any of the products that you see or hear mentioned in the review. I deviated from the kit's instructions by working on the body first because I find that it takes a lot of effort and handling and needs to dry before you can really do any of that. So I got that done first, and of course look over the body for any imperfections, etc., and clean them up. There was only minor mold lines here that appeared on the top of the sides of the cowl and up there on top of the roof. They're marked in black. And I also taped the body pieces in perfect alignment and then glued them on from the inside using a little capillary glue like the Tamiya thin cements, etc. Now, I chose a color to match it, but I had to really mix it. I just took some yellow paint, added a little dab of red, and even a tinge of blue there for a good color match. After a couple of light coats of primer had dried, I sprayed the body with the paint that I had mixed up, and it came out pretty nice. There were a few little imperfections to repair, but just using an airbrush, you can thin coat any spots that need to be touched up, and it'll blend right in. After the paint had thoroughly dried, I masked it for the black patches and panels that are on the race car. As you can see here, the Tamiya tape, the yellow stuff, is made to get a good clean edge. Make sure you tamp down and burnish the edges to make sure there's a good tight fit there. And then go ahead and spray your medium gloss black spray to give it the two-tone effect. With the black inserts dried, it's time to apply the decals. They go on flawlessly. They're nice to use decals, and just make sure you use plenty of warm water. Let them soak for about 20 seconds or 30, and then place them into position. Once they're there, smooth them out, with a nice soft piece of cotton swab or cloth, and get them tamped down. Now, I would suggest you use some of the setting solutions to just nestle into the crevices, but as you can see, once you get those into place, this is a stunning looking vehicle. Finally, you'll want to lock in those decals in place with the nice even coat of clear to keep the edges from standing out and to give it a nice shine. Now we can start to build the motor as you see in the instruction set here. First, of course, grab the pieces that you'll need for construction, and then go ahead and assemble the block, halves and the cylinder heads, etc., along with the valve covers in the front and manifold. Now we can finish off the motor. The induction tubes there are chromed, but of course I just painted over those with some flat black. And then go ahead and assemble the rest of the motor with the fan belt assembly, etc. there. It's, for the most part, silver and gunmetal. And as you can see, those are the two colors presented on the motor here. Well, actually, there's the distributor's a kind of a brown color, so you can see that in the back end. So next we'll start with the tire and wheel assemblies, and nicely branded with the Goodyear Eagle markings still back in 2004. So grab these parts along with the styrene pieces that are all in one tree there, and then we're going to use a nail file or a piece of flat sandpaper to kind of clean up the mold line in the middle of the treaded area, or where it hits the road, I should say. And then the decals can be applied. They're very nice. How can that be wrong? Well, I was begging you not to do it the whole time, and I rushed through this. So the fit of the tires was so tight that I had to fight them into place, and I broke some of the decals positioning them. So word to the wise is put the tires together and then put the decals on. You can do a little prep work with these pieces. Go ahead and paint the radiator medium flat black, and then the chrome boot there, that needs to be detailed in flat black as well for the shift lever. We're going to proceed to chassis assembly here at step 3, and add, of course, some of the assemblies that have already been put together. So go ahead and prepare the bottom pan, clean that up, and get that ready to prime. I gave it a prime with a medium gloss black, and it looks pretty nice. Now, if you want to go a little extra detail here, I found a picture that shows that the right side of the cockpit is in bare metal. You don't need to do this, but I did it. So if you want to enhance your build, you can mask that off and paint that with some aluminum color. Now here's the engine put into the engine cradle there on its mounts. Now just locate the mounts, and remember, always scrape paint or chrome plating off of the parts you want to glue together for a good adhesion. Now dry fit the rest of the parts here as you go along. The seat, the fuel cell, and the radiator, and then the chromed boot gets glued into place, but the firewall isn't yet positioned. Okay, following the cleanup and a little detailing here, the interior is looking pretty nice. Your test fitting, including the pieces that go into position in the firewall then to glue there, is it's pretty important to do that first to make sure everything fits properly. Next, we're going to work on the roll cage, and there's quite a few pieces here, but there's some tools that you can use. The first one is to assemble it all at one time, making sure that all of the struts and bars fit into the notches and receivers the way they should. That way, you can use a little bit of slower setting cement at least to get things going, and then make sure everything attaches together. Start with the long sides first because they've got more attachment points, and do this all in, like I said, a single session so that you can match everything into position. Next, we're going to add the pieces to that area because once you get that nice and square and in place, everything else will fit well. And so it's important to make sure they're all lined up, but you can add, the dash plate here and the attendant pieces, the pedals, etc., into the cockpit area, and then you'll end up with a wireframe looking car that is a nicely detailed tube chassis and roll cage. And next we're going to concentrate on the suspension area and the tires and wheels up front there. And also we'll be adding the steering wheel at this time. Most of these pieces are, of course, medium gloss black. To break that up, of course, I added a little bit of color to the coil springs there, and just to give it a little pizzazz underneath. The next part is to assemble the rear axle housing there and the exhaust, and so go ahead and put those pieces together. In an effort to continue breaking up that black color scheme, I painted the shocks up front red, and the cross member there is a bluish color, just to make it look more interesting. There's that front suspension area from the underside, so you can see the detailing there. Now, as promised, we'll add that steering wheel into position. Again, I put a little blue paint in there just to break it up. You can see the wheel in the cage there, just directly above the fire extinguisher. Okay, I poured the heat into the exhaust here, and you do that by spraying some successive coats of candy alclads, some blue and some indigo and some red, over the steel in different areas. And I needed to remove that seam, but I'll fix that later. Anyway, keep going, because it's if you make a mistake, you can always go back to fix it, but it's best to try and do it first. So you can go ahead and add the exhaust there. Those are side pipes, I guess you'd call them. Anyway, they pour it out the side through that little notch, and glue that into position now. So now we'll work on the window glass. Now these get detailed, the surrounds from the inside and the braces from the outside. And there's no masks supplied, so I simply traced them out and made my own masks to finish the detailing there on the windows. And as you can see, masking from the outside here was pretty easy. You just use a hobby knife to trim along those lines, and then you can go ahead and paint those braces there. Okay, before we button things up, we're going to add the hoses and overflow item there, the filler tube and the overflow hose to the the fuel cell, the gas tank. So I painted the overfill hose with some clear orange to simulate a full tank of gas. And of course the other tube was just left clear with some silver detailing. With just a little imagination, this becomes a visually stunning subframe, and the body of course just drops into position. You can take it off and display the rest as you see fit. So it was a really pretty much a fun build. At the last details were painting the reinforcing rib on the front bumper with some silver, and the roof racks with a little white paint. And it's a nice kit to build. There's really no big issues. One of the important things, of course, is to take your time, use plenty of water for the decals, and to make sure that the roll cage around the driver's area is assembled all at one step and assembled square and true. Then I would go ahead and paint it after it's already put together with good strong adhesions. So that keeps everything in position properly. Finally, add that netting to the driver window there, and then paint that with some flat black paint to give it some of your final detailing. And then once you get to that point, you can display it proudly. And if I were you, I'd buy one and put it on my shelf. Well, we hope you like this step-by-step scale model kit review. And so that you don't miss any more, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do that by clicking on the icon in the lower right hand of any of the reviews, or you could find us on Facebook or at our website, rightonreplicas.com. Thanks.